It's very active over the next 5 days as we'll be watching the biggest storm of March start to come together. So let's really expand the view this morning and highlight the setup going forward. Here's a satellite picture. We've got an upper level low that's draped across portions of El Paso. That's creating the lift mechanism out ahead of it, where they are expecting to produce showers and thunderstorms in Texas, and further south they could be on the severe side with some larger hail associated with those. But that's going to continue to traverse across into the southeast and eventually swing up the east coast, bringing them some heavier rainfall, while we have a northern side that's going to bring the cold sector and a swath of snow through Montana as well as in the Dakotas up through the upper Midwest all the way into New England. And we have yet a stronger system back behind it that promises to bring several days of severe storms and even potentially a major snowstorm. Yes, folks, in the month of March. So I appreciate all my followers out there. If you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel. And I would love to reach 250,000 subscribers by the end of April. And you can help me get there by subscribing to the channel and following all my daily content. So let's take a look at the setup over the next couple of days, because we do have actually winter storm watches and winter weather advisories in place for those areas into Montana, with that first initial swath of snow that will swing through the Dakotas down there towards Minneapolis, all the way into Wisconsin. Even Milwaukee gets into the action. That'll actually swing through portions of Michigan, and then coming up the coast into upstate New York, it will unload with a renewed bout of heavier snow, especially as you get in the state of Maine. They could be looking at over a foot of snow for them. But further south, here's the latest update from the Storm Prediction Center on the overnight update, and does in fact have that marginal risk of severe storms further south into central Texas today, but they could even be stronger later this morning. But especially in the overnight hours, we'll be watching a Boeing type setup. They could have definitely some stronger winds associated with those, maybe some 60-65 mile per hour winds, and potentially larger hail associated with those into southeast Texas, because they have a little bit more moisture content and a little bit more instability that will be lifting out of the Gulf and into southeast Texas. So overall, here's the setup over the next 24 hours. You're going to be watching waves of rain. It's kind of light rain this morning. It should pick up later on this afternoon, late this afternoon. Those could have some colder air aloft associated with it. That's where they have the increasing threat of some marginal severe some hail associated with those, and some larger hail once you fishtail further south into southeast Texas. But I think in the overnight hours, once we hit the nighttime hours, about 9, 10, 11 o'clock, we'll have a swath of heavier precipitation that swings through North Texas, that'll swing through Central Texas. And that's the setup in the overnight hours, where I feel that we could have some Boeing features start to take shape in the wee hours of the morning, trending towards the Houston Metroplex. Those could be the more significant storms into the overnight hours, as this will continue to shift off in to the southeast. And there's that swath of snow that will be impacting the northern areas into Minneapolis, especially as we get into tonight. So as we head into tomorrow, and you can follow the date on the upper right hand corner of the screen, there's the setup for the southeast with the heavier rains that will push out of most of Texas, shift into far east Texas by then. Now it'll swing through portions of Louisiana, back into Mississippi, as well as into Alabama, into Georgia, and then really start to pull up into the Carolinas. But further south, yes, we could be looking at some heavier rains moving in. Really, all of Florida there, and especially southern Florida, could pick up some fairly significant rains with this next system, because the heavier amounts are actually going to be out in the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico, with a more significant system really trending further south into South Florida. But further north, there's the heavier rain that will continue to push off into the Carolinas as we swing through Saturday. That northern branch, you can see the red line there, that's your freezing line. That's where we see more significant snows possibly 1 to 3 inches, and then it really starts to build up there into New England later in the day on Saturday. And then look off West Coast. That will be our second system, an even stronger system that will start to take shape on Sunday. So we're going to delve into the forecast from that system. But first, a word from my sponsor.
Hello, everyone. Today, I want to have a candid conversation about safeguarding our privacy in a digital age. As someone deeply invested in protecting my family's personal information, I understand the importance of staying vigilant in an increasingly interconnected world. That's why I'm excited to share with you an invaluable tool that made a profound difference in my life, Aura, today's video sponsor. I'll be honest, prior to discovering Aura, I was inundated with unwanted robocalls and constantly worried about the security of my personal information. It felt like a never-ending battle trying to keep up with the constant barrage of privacy threats. Aura is not just another identity protection service, it's a game changer. From the moment I signed up, I felt a sense of relief knowing that Aura was digitally working behind the scenes, safeguarding my family's privacy. Here's a list of the data brokers they were able to remove, 14 different ones over the last couple of months. One of the things I love most about Aura is the simplicity of their platform. Everything I need to protect my family's privacy is right at my fingertips. If you're tired of feeling vulnerable online and want to take control of your digital privacy, I urge you to give Aura a try. With their 2-week free trial, there's a no risk involved, just the opportunity to reclaim your peace of mind. Visit aura.com/POW to sign up today and let Aura do all the heavy lifting. Trust me, you won't regret it.
So let's talk about this setup going forward. So we'll have that snow swath but continuing to shift off to the east. There into Saturday night, there's the system that will really unload for New England, especially those areas into Maine. As I mentioned, over a foot of snow is definitely not out of the question for them. But further to the south and where they don't need the rainfall, they've just been inundated over the last couple of months, especially along the coast. Another 1 to 3 inches is definitely not out of the question for all those areas along the coastal areas into the East Coast, essentially from, basically southern Maine all the way into the Carolinas, where they could be picking up some healthy totals on the rainfall front. But there's that system off the West Coast, a 997 millibar low pressure will definitely start to get its act together and continue to dive southbound and actually bring definitely some colder temperatures for March standards. You're going to really feel this in a big way. And we could be looking at a more significant low pressure really starting to build across the Rockies as the latest update on some of this ensemble guidances actually drops this down to a 979 millibar low pressure right around the Texas Panhandle. That's the beginning stages, especially as it pulls in that colder air, that we could be looking at a more significant snowstorm really starting to build, especially as it gets into the upper Midwest. But further south, definitely is some areas that we have to be concerned about severe storms within the warm sector that will likely originate into the Texas Panhandle as we get into that Sunday timeframe. So right now, the Storm Prediction Center is highlighting that event that should be setting up along Lubbock into the Oklahoma City region, back into central Kansas, as the beginning stages of what could be a squall line really start to take shape. And that will likely move across the Dallas-Fort Worth area into Tulsa, into the overnight hours on Sunday, as that will continue to push off into the southeast on Monday. But look what happens, folks. That's a pretty significant cold blast for the end of March standards. It's officially spring now, and it's not going to feel like spring for a good northern half of the country, as those temperatures will really drop in a big way. That's a good 20 to almost 30 degrees below average temperatures for your average temperatures, what you would typically see this time of year. So you can see the beginning stages of this kind of bowing feature. That's the indication where these could potentially have definitely some higher wind gust, as these will continue to push off to the southeast. But further north, yeah, it's going to be all snow, folks. And yeah, we're going to be setting the stage for potentially major snowstorm. Yes, increasing confidence that a large system will produce a heavy swath of snow and freezing rain, sleet across the upper Midwest, the northern plains into early next week. I think this all gets going on Sunday, but especially unloads on Monday into Tuesday. Some heavier snows is expected to overspread Montana through the northern plains into the upper Midwest, a more significant combination of heavier snows and gustier winds. And there's a pocket of the highest potential of some freezing rain, folks. Yes, we're talking about freezing rain as you go into Monday morning into southeastern South Dakota, into northern Nebraska, into southern portions of Minnesota, as well as into northwestern portions of Iowa. But further north, whoo, it's going to be all snow. And you could be picking up some significant totals, definitely the highest snowfall totals you've seen in that area all winter long, because you're basically in a significant deficit on the snowfall front, but you're going to be making a major dent in that by the time we head into Tuesday. So here's the setup later into Monday. So you got the more significant low pressure coming out of the panhandle, moving northeast, and look at those tight isobars. That's definitely an indication of very gusty winds on the backside, and that's going to be some significant wind chill drops in a big way. Don't put away your winter coat yet, because you're going to need the snow shovels and the winter coat in a big way, because you're going to definitely feel this front on the backside. But there's a squall line out ahead of it in the warm sector, likely on Sunday night, that will move across Oklahoma City into Tulsa, back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and that will continue to move off into East Texas and eventually in the southeast on Monday, later in the day on Monday. But further north, things will start really get cranking for those areas into the Dakotas, and especially up there towards Minnesota into Minneapolis, where they could be looking at easily over a foot of snow, if not almost 2 feet of snow. Look at the low pressure where it's highlighted right there in Nebraska. That continues to lift off to the northeast. Look at the water vapor imagery of just an abundance amount of moisture streaming in from the Gulf of Mexico, and that lifts it all the way up near Iowa, all the way into feeding into Minnesota, back into Wisconsin. That's where it's going to be unloading with that heavier snowfall, and then the squall line with more significant wind gust further south. So even on Monday time frame, the Storm Prediction Center, even this far out, has highlighted those areas. Once we get into Monday afternoon, into the Shreveport region, back into Little Rock, into Jackson, all the way into Memphis, as we'll be looking at more of the significant setup with gustier winds, some larger hail, and definitely some isolated tornadoes along this leading edge of this what looks to be kind of a bigger squall line that will be moving through. But look at the wind chills as we wake up on Tuesday morning, folks. Whew. Yeah, you are going to feel this in a big way. Look at the bowing. That's that more significant colder air, and that's not a misprint, folks. With all that snow on the ground up there in the Dakotas and Minnesota, those wind chills are going to be bone chilling. Yeah, it's going to feel a lot like winter. 14 below zero feels like, so that's just going to be nasty for late March with freezing rain, all that ice on the ground down there in southeastern South Dakota. And then you got abundance amount of 1 to 2 feet of snow on the ground with a healthy snowpack up there that will allow those temperatures to drop. But look at the feels likes, even all the way down into Missouri. You're talking 20s, even into Oklahoma. So yeah, it's not going to feel like spring for any stretch of the imagination back behind that front, because as we continue deeper in the day on Tuesday, it will continue to shift off to the east, bringing that swath of rain and snow literally from coast to coast. You got the coastline all the way to the Canadian border. As this will continue to lift up into Canada, that will bring the snows eventually up there into Canada, and then further south. I think these will likely be severe heading into Tuesday, but once we get into Wednesday, I think things start to break up, especially further off to the east you get. So once you get into the Carolinas, back into far southeastern portions of the southeast, I don't feel like these will be severe. So the more significant event will likely be within this region over the next 5 days from this particular setup. But the first initial system, yeah, that brings a healthier swath of snows into Maine, but then you get rain on the backside with this second system as we go into Wednesday. But there's a swath of winds that'll be on the backside. So I mean, March is already a windy month, and April is actually the windiest month there is out of the 12 months. So it's going to feel like it, right? Those winds are going to be cranking on the backside of this cold blast that will be coming through. And some of those could be fairly healthy, and we could be even looking at borderline some blizzard-like conditions up there in the Dakotas through Minnesota as that storm gets cranking into Sunday, Monday time frame for them. But overall, here's the snow swath, folks, and this has been pretty consistent even on the blends of the models, and this is actually even a more conservative look. Yeah, printing some really healthy, very high totals. It's kind of hard to believe. I mean, we're going to be getting 2 feet, possibly 2.5 feet. Yeah, I mean, you think this is overdone, but yeah, it's been really consistent for the last several days, and some of these models are even higher than this. So this is actually the more conservative look. So this is what we're talking about. I showed you the water content that's available left with this system, and as it just kind of sits and spins and just dumps that snow 2, 3, 4 inches per hour at times, it's going to pile up in a big way. And you can see the bullseye, right? You got basically 3 inches of liquid highlighted over central Minnesota. That's where they come up with some of those 30-inch totals, right? So that's not that definitely far-fetched out of the question. And further south, we'll have to be dealing with that healthy rain swath, but then some severe storms, especially as we get into today, and then highlighted over Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday timeframe, swinging in through the southeast. And there's the heavier rains, especially along the East Coast, that they'll have to be dealing with this weekend with that first initial system that will be swinging up for them. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch my next update. Wire protect you before and after the storm.